Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you're returning. Today's video is a couple of days late, but better late than never. If you watched last week's video, you saw that I had made over the desk that I'd picked up at my first online sale. I just wasn't happy with this. This has gone on over the past few weeks and it's really been a pain in the derriere. Initially I'd picked this up on an online sale, and I just wanted to point out, if you're doing this and there's not many pictures, see if you can ask questions, because this is not what I thought it was. I thought it was a desk. It turns out it was something else that was being turned into a desk. Regardless, I picked it up, I did one makeover, hated it, sanded it all down, painted it with chalk paint, and then used this rub-on, a transfer. The transfer hadn't gone on very well. I found out that I had to seal the paint before I did it, so that was what I'd done last week. Now on the inside I decoupaged it and added some velvet, and the decoupaged bottom piece was not quite fitting. I didn't like the way it was going against the sides of the little desk unit, so I didn't have any black or dark ribbon or tape that I could fit inside to finish the corners, so I made some myself. I had this rope that I tend to use for when I'm making ribbing or decorative piping. This is what I run inside it when I make my own. So I cut it to length and then I soaked it in this paint, and this was acrylic paint, and it was about half acrylic paint, half water. Mixed it all together and then put this rope in, soaked it really well, kept turning it over, and did this for about half an hour. After half an hour, when it had really soaked up most of the water and the paint, I took it outside and I laid it out as flat as I could, because I don't know if you've ever done this, when things are painted they tend to go a little stiff, and because I needed this to be sort of a square shape with rounded corners, I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to try and be more pliable as opposed to curly. So I laid this out and left it for a couple of hours in the sun for it to dry. I recommend that you use rubber gloves or some type of glove for this part. I ended up getting it on my fingers and my nails and it stained them, so if you've got gloves, try and use them. Onto my French country desk. This was $15 at the local thrift store. It was in really quite good condition as a whole. The paintwork was horrid on it, but I thought even if I just bought it for the knobs were worth more than $15. But turned out it just needed a really good paint. Even the store was in good condition. So what I did was I pulled out the drawers. They were quite stained, and I decided just to paint them with a watered down black paint which covered up most of the stains. I knew I was going to be lining the inside of the drawers, so I wasn't too worried. So I did inside and out with the black paint. I also decided it had the most lovely little wheels on it, so I did spray them gold. I did it first to see how they turned out and then went back and did it again properly. I decided to do this desk in, as I said, a nice French country look. I had a beautiful transfer that I was going to use for it, so I went ahead and I used a very, very light pink chalk paint, almost off-white. It's just, when it's next to white you can see it's pink, and when it's in the right light it's a very subtle pink, but that's what I wanted because I knew I was either going to be using a beautiful ticking on the chair or a toile. I used the same lining paper that I used on the desk. I also put this on the back of the desk. I cut 4 pieces to fit the bottom of each drawer. I put a layer of decoupage on the bottom of the drawer and then just laid a piece of the paper inside, and because it was cut to the same measurements it fit really well. I didn't need to do anything else to it. I didn't even add an extra layer of decoupage over the top. This is just so that when you open the drawer you don't see the mess at the bottom of the drawer. You just see a nice pretty rose paper, which is a really nice contrast to the pink and the glass on the desk. So you can see the paper has been cut exactly to length, and then it's just a matter of placing it in. I lined it up with the front of the drawer, because even how often do you pull a drawer out all of the way? And I figured if it did fit short, it's better to fit short at the back of the drawer rather than the front. But as you can see, I'd measured it so that it did fit really well, and once it was in and all flat, it didn't need an extra coat of anything. Once the drawers were finished with the sides painted and the layer of that lovely paper in the bottom, I painted them in the same pink chalk paint. Once that was dry, I gave it a layer of antiquing wax. Now this was the clear wax, and this gives everything a lovely finish. So you put quite a decent layer on, and then you polish it all up with another cloth. And I did this on all 4 drawers, on the fronts, the sides and the top, and like I said, it gives it a lovely finish and it also protects it. Onto the stool. The stool was actually in really good condition. Once I took the seat pad off, I just tightened up all the screws and I gave it 2 coats of the chalk paint in the pink. I didn't distress it, it didn't need it. This chalk paint is really quite chalky and I just love the finish on it. It's got like little bits in it and I really like that. I do go over and sand the worst bits down, but it gives a nice, really antique look to the wood when it's finished when I use this paint. Before I started the job, I decided it was either going to be a pink colour or a very light mint green, because I had a couple of different red materials I could use that were very French, and I had a beautiful green toile. I decided to go with the pink and this red because it was the nicest match together. This is a very French, it's almost like a ticking material. So I covered it with that. Now, I did try to take the previous coats off of batting and whatever. It was just, there was no way it was going to come off, and I thought, forget it, you know what, I'm just going to use, rather than use more staples, I used the Gorilla hot glue, which honestly, it sticks better than any glue I've ever used. So I glued it all down, keeping my corners as neat as possible, and then finished it off with this nice backing piece so that if the stool is turned over, it looks good from all angles. So I did have more video of me painting 2 coats on both, all underneath the desk, sides, bottom, everything. I don't know where that went to, but I did give 3 good coats on the top layer, gave it a good sanding between and waited it to dry. I then gave it a coating of the decoupage Mod Podge. This gives it a nice seal so that you can use your transfer on top. Now, this is not an IOD transfer. They are by far better. If you have access to them, buy them every time. This is a thing that we get in Canada, it's called Redesign. You can get them off Amazon, but they are just not as good. So if you are going to be using transfers and you can get the Iron Orchid, then do it, because they're just so much better. Onto the wheels then. Once everything was painted, I went back and just sprayed the wheels the couple of layers of gold just to add. It just looks so much nicer with the little gold wheels peeking out from underneath. So let's have a look at the refinished English Country desk. As you can see, the top part of the desk I redid, I repainted, I rubbed it down, I repainted and added some more lettering. With both of the transfers that I used, I cut them up and used bits of the transfers. I didn't put them in order, I didn't use them how they were supposed to be. You don't have to, you can make them up, mix them, it doesn't matter, and I think you'll agree in the long run they've turned out really nice. This one definitely, I thought I was going to do black chalk paint on the back of this, but I thought, no, you know what, let's keep it the way it is. You can see the inside, the way I've put the rope all the way around and stuck it down, it just finishes it off nicely. I also thought if this could be a kind of drinks cabinet, but To be honest, I'm going to sell this one. If I had more time and inclination, I would turn it into a drinks cabinet, but I'm just going to sell it as is, and hopefully somebody's going to enjoy it. I do think when it's closed like that, it looks really quite special. Did add the tassel. I think it's a nice little finishing touch, and you do find them on a lot of antique pieces. So onto the French country desk. Now this one had turned out much better than I actually anticipated. This is the same transfer that I had used on the other desk, but this was the rest of it, and I'm loving how it turned out. I did, as I said, I fluctuated between doing this in a very light mint colour with the green toile stool cover, but I'm so happy I went with the pink and the red and white stripe. It just looks, they complement each other so well. It looks so pretty, especially with the little glass knobs. It's a delicate little piece, and then you can see the little gold wheels sticking out from underneath. This was, as I said, this was the transfer that I'd used part of it on the initial desk where it turned out terrible. So I cut this all up and I sort of pieced it together, and then once I was finished with it, I sanded it all to give it an extra distress, and I'm again quite happy with the outcome. And I think in English that transfer is there is only one happiness in life, and it is to love and to be loved. Roughly that's what it says, and I thought it looked really nice in I thought especially in a little girl's room or a teenager's room. It's a nice little touch. That one drawer, if you saw then, was a little stuck. I'm going to have to run a little bit of candle wax on the runners just to stop the sticking, but I think it's just because it's got a few layers of the chalk paint, which is a little thicker than regular paint. But I think you'll agree, those little gold feet just add that little bit of extra whimsy, and it looks really pretty. I have to say these transfers took quite a bit of work to get them to stick. If you remember with the desk the first time around, it took most of the paint off, which was really annoying. That's why I would go ahead and use the IOD transfers. They're just, I don't know if it's the quality or whenever I've used an IOD transfer, I've never had the issues that I do with these other redesigned transfers. I always have a little bit of sticking or a little bit of problems with it. But so again, in my opinion, if you can get them, use the IOD transfers above any other that I've used. They certainly are more of a quality product, and price wise they are a very similar price. So thanks so much for watching. I hope to have another video for you on Tuesday. As I said, you know, sometimes life throws things at you that you're not always ready for, and you have to sit down for a minute and sort of take the time to breathe. And so hopefully we'll see you Tuesday for another video.